Hello and welcome to the most pretentious podcasts on the internet, the Catholic Scallywag.
Avast, you scurvy dogs. We are a festival of conviviality.
Aha!
Well, look at us, Jim. We're a festival of conviviality.
Ah!
This actually makes me happy every time I see it. It's pretty good.
We've a sick Udis with us today. So you're having your hot toddy?
Yes, I'm having a hot toddy in my unreconstructed, ossified manualist mug.
Oh, lovely.
Courtesy of the brilliant merchandising of Father Zulsdorf.
Father Zulsdorf. Does he call himself Father Z since he's an American?
Well, he's Father Zed, and if you call him Father Z, you're an American. But if you're a Canadian, you don't. So
that's correct. So the big news in the Catholic world is the
so exciting!
So exciting! Yeah, we got the new dube.
More questions to go unanswered. Who's excited?
Yeah. So yes, we got these venerable gentlemen.
All men that Pope Francis has proven that he cares about the opinion of and has listened to, as we can.
Yeah. So Taylor Marshall's wife was upset that there's only 5. It's like, why are there only 5? And then I kind of realized it's like, oh, well, they actually are representing a universal voice since they actually are from the 5 continents. Well, except I guess technically Cardinal Inez is actually from North America, but he basically represents Central Latin America. So, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much as a universal representation as you're going to get from 5 members in the magisterium. But yeah, it's causing quite a stir. They're asking some pretty fundamental questions about the nature of dogma, etc. And apparently the criticism that's been inveighed against them by some of our, well, he doesn't say it's a criticism to be sure, but he says that it's our friend Monsieur Loftin says that it is a bit of a mismanagement the way that it's been handled. So we can watch our friend for a little bit here. Let's see what he has to say.
Francis actually said in its entire form, which comes from the Vatican website translated in English by Where Peter Is. So I'm going to show you 3 different sources, but instead of jumping around all on the screen, I'm going to show you all in one place.
Is he showing us a Word document?
This information so that
yes.
you can follow it and you can get the full.
I think it's actually Google Docs.
Now, this is what on September 25th, what Fernandez sent to the Holy Father asking for this to be made available publicly. He says.
So this is Fernandez is the poetry guy, I think, right?
And this came
are we talking about Spider-Man?
Having received from you a copy of your
Spider-Man,
July 11th, 2023, in which you responded.
Yeah, so there's the July dube, and now there's like a new dube.
Cardinals Burke and Brand.
Which is, I guess all this stuff's made public now, because they actually privately submitted this dubia, and this dubia has just been released now because with the Holy Father's intent, apparently actual responses, because this happened before, but like the responses before were only partial responses, and so it makes the Cardinals look like they only gave a partial response.
of the faith may take into consideration and possibly quote
You look so
some
excited.
paragraphs of these
Oh,
responses.
the
in order to better
thrilling
clarify
conclusion of the
what
ecclesiastical
so
Sheriff
thrilling.
submitted to you. So he
questions.
asks, "Hey, can I
And
get
then the partial
permission
responses,
to
and then
post
there's
this
going to
thing,
be
or
a
at the very
thing, and
least
then
post some quotes
nothing,
from it?"
because there's never anything.
Okay. Pope Francis
Yeah.
gave the green light because it is today on the website after the Cardinals failed to present it themselves and only gave a skewed and distorted, I might add, presentation of what Pope Francis said, as we will see here in a moment. Now, I don't know what their intentions were. I'm not trying to, let me make this very clear. I'm not trying to read hearts. I don't know what Cardinal Burke's intentions or Bramule or any of.
Just give me
For
a
all I
red
know,
hat.
this was just
That'd be
really,
great.
really bad management. And there's no ill will here. There's no intention
well.
to deceive. There's no intention to
Want a
mislead
red
the
Beretta?
faithful. There's
Cover
no
up my
intention to
bald
distort
spot?
Pope Francis. For all I know, the intentions are good. They just have misunderstood the situation and really poorly managed this issue publicly in the mass media. For all I know, that's the case. So let me make this very clear. I don't know what their intentions are.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Lofton. That was wonderful.
I wonder if he could read us like an article from one of those Encyclopedia Britannicas he keeps behind him, or whatever the heck he's got back there.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Maybe you got like some like Hardy Boy novels. That'd be kind of fun.
The complete Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
Bound in elegant leather. My
One of our
apartment smells
one
of
of our
rich
friends,
mahogany.
one of our friends he's got one of these book collections, and then he showed me like he's got these like pre-sealed, plastic wrapped like all the documentation of the Civil War era, of like not the Civil War era, of the actual documentation of the Civil War. I don't understand why you would want that, but I guess it's kind of cool, I suppose.
You would want it if you would. I studied the Civil War, I guess. I mean,
I guess so, but I mean, there's a lot of
boredom.
paper and ink. Yeah,
Boredom in one place.
it sounds pretty boring.
Oh
yeah.
no, the piratical rebels got upset at the other piratical rebels because they're like, no, you can't tell us what to do, because we said the king can't tell us what to do. Now you're going to tell us what to do. So we're going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you what to do.
So it'd be like it'd be basically kind of like the collected letters between like the Gauls and the Ostrogoths, or something like that. Or the Visigoths. Just be like, oh yeah, well, yeah. I don't know. It just sounds very fun. That would sound. I'd actually be more interesting.
Probably more interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, the American Civil War. Yeah. Meanwhile, I would like to point out. Meanwhile, in the British Empire, civilized world at that time, they solved the slavery thing by making it illegal.
Yeah, they're just like,
by having a discussion.
Yeah, it's like, let's not.
No. Yes. No.
Let's not do the slave thing.
It's bad. And everyone went, you're right. It actually isn't a great look. Let's not. Let's
And so there's more stuff about some aliens. So it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. We're gonna find them. They're the truth is out there. They're in the Goldilocks zone.
John, if there were aliens.
Oh look, they were
more advanced than we are.
Aliens.
Is this the we're gonna find alien microbes, or is this like the aliens have visited us kind of thing?
I don't know. Well, yeah, there was like
because if it's the second kind, you can guarantee that if they have visited us, they've taken humans as pets, and then they have a show called Human King that people watch, where they have humans running around in their yards and they're biting the aliens. One of the aliens is like, Carol Baskin murdered her husband. They have that rough equivalent.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
They have an ultra flamboyant alien wearing human skin print. Oh, that's terrifying. Anyway, it's fake. It's not real. And that would be cruel. And shooting guns. They're shooting laser
Okay.
guns on a ranch somewhere in space. They're like
Yeah,
talking
100%.
trash, and the humans are running around like they're like getting knives and stabbing them in their sleep and stuff.
So I saw a priest had a video that he said that there are aliens that aren't fallen, that they have like that they're not that the sin that they weren't affected by the sin of Adam,
How does he know that?
because Padre Pio said that apparently.
I mean, is this one of the citation needed?
Yeah, I kind of like to see the citation there as well.
You know,
But I don't know.
people can
Everyone's
say what they
talking
want.
about
People can
aliens,
say
so-
what people can say what they want about, you know, the king of trad clickbait himself, Dr. Taylor Marshall. But in his
Right.
book Infiltration, he tried every single claim, like the claim about the vision of the devil by Leo the 13th, and every single claim. He rigorously tried to find documentation of what actually happened, who said it,
Right.
what the original report was, and
Right.
whether or not the sources were trustworthy.
Right. Well, that's
So all of his actual arguments, he goes really in on the sources and tries to like
well, that's kind of
work
what you
out
hope
the
from
resources.
any book.
Right. But a lot of people just like say things
I know.
on the internet,
Padre
which is
Pio said
it's outrageous that on the internet that they wouldn't source their quotations.
So there's some more dubia. This Cardinal Duca is asking about the divorce and remarriage. So this is the old dubia, but it's coming back up again. And so Fernandez, who is the original author of Amoris Laetitia, quickly responded to this new old dube about the divorced and remarried having communion, and he said, "It is each person individually who is called to put himself before God and expose his conscience to Him, and both its possibilities and its limits. Their conscience, accompanied by a priest and enlightened by the guidelines of the Church." is called to be formed and evaluate and give a sufficient judgment to discern the possibility of accessing the sacraments. Isn't that the most Jesuitical
That sentence doesn't say anything.
couple sentences? I know. Yeah, it's like they discern with their conscience what their conscience is. It sounds very
This goes back
familiar.
This goes back to what we were discussing in the prep. This goes
Right.
back to what when I was talking about how by virtue of the nature of the church and by virtue the Pope, by virtue of his office, they can't come out and say it's okay for X to do Y. What they can come out and say is blah 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 X feels blah, 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 these following 58 conditions that are very poorly laid out here. Blah 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 blah. It's within the realm of possibility that maybe blah 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 blah. And you get like 30 pages in, and then they're like, to do Y. Like, okay, well, to follow this line of reasoning all the way through is impossible. So it's basically taken as a carte blanche that, oh, we can just do whatever we want. And that's
all of Christendom was in moral outrage.
That's the way that they obviously want that sort of thing to be interpreted. They're not allowed to say, you know, that which is contrary to the teaching of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. They're not allowed to speak contrary to tradition. What they're allowed to do is like sneak around it with all these weasel clauses and nonsense.
Like the tree of synodality or whatever with the no one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
All I know is I haven't seen a
provocative of
fig
my
on that.
synodal leaves just flourishing.
No
outwards.
synodal figs, though. Have you noticed there's no figs
Yeah.
coming off of that fig tree? It might be. It might be cursed. I don't know.
Yeah, or about to be cursed
Yes.
for not having any. that's, that's great. But yeah, but it's you know, but it's provocative, you know. It's just like this.
It's the people
Sorry,
going
go.
like not even. It's
It's
not
just
even like that. It's not even like Blades of Glory.
It's just like
Like no
it's
one
like,
is
oh,
going.
it's
No one is
we get to
interested.
transcend all our disagreements, and then we get
Oh,
on a
is he doing
PowerPoint
jazz hands? That's so
on a,
exciting.
on a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. Despite our different understandings, we may be divided by different. We might be divided by different hopes. But if we listen to the Lord and to each other, seeking to understand his will for the church and the world, we shall be united in a hope that transcends all our disagreements. Wow.
So deep. What is the sound of one hand clapping?
No silence.
what is Disturbed doing here? It's like it's not even like the original. It's like the Disturbed cover. To the old girl they made. Those stupid silence.
So we're talking about the our relations with our Eastern brethren today, and our hopes of, you know, wrangling up some ecclesial union. Just wrangle them up. But we have a guest who's hopefully will be joining us soon, who's, you know, a little bit of trying to represent the eastern side, who's from the east side, you know, and it's not really, but he's, you know, he's gonna give us we're gonna expand upon these areas, and so that's why we're talking about breathing with one lung, as our Holy Father does on a daily basis. In reference to, of course, the document by St. John Paul II about breathing with both lungs. So we need the Eastern Church. And do we really need the Eastern Church, though? Like, I mean, in reality, like, I mean, I think like it's obviously complementary, but I don't know if it's necessary.
Well, I mean, strictly necessary. It's not really a question, but historically, I mean, it is
Obviously,
a
yeah, yeah.
It's a thing, and it's a thing that, you know, it's a thing that can't be
Ignored.
Liturgically speaking, historically speaking, it is an established fact.
Oh, of course.
So,
I mean,
now but the problem, of course, the chief problem with reunion is the idea of ecclesiology that was developed separately after going into schism on account of the fact that the emperor was a drunk.
Sure.
Turned out we had a better emperor in the West anyway.
Oh, well, I thought that part of the establishment of the Holy Roman Emperor, though, was this kind of the scandal about Irene and the
No, that was negotiated afterward.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was after.
Yeah, but that was
no,
what
the establishment of the Western Roman Empire was before that. That was Charlemagne was a little shocked actually when it happened.
When he's crowned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but it was more the fallout from the fact that the Byzantine emperors were doing absolutely nothing to help whatsoever in the Italian peninsula.
Oh, sure. But that also no, but I think also there was a question of legitimacy after Irene nominated her son. Like that was
No, because he was
yeah.
considered the Western. He was considered the Western Roman Empire emperor. They never questioned. Now there was an attempt
Constantine the
to
Fifth.
merge,
Yeah,
but there have through various parts in the history of the Roman Empire there have been two emperors.
Mm.
And so there's always an attempt to merge the empire into a cohesive whole again. But
sure.
both emperors are still emperors. I mean, they were both recognized as emperors at the Council of Florence, for example.
Sure.
Both were recognized. I mean, Blessed Constantine the 11th is recognized as emperor as he died fighting in Constantinople. There's no
Sure.
question
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
But I mean,
But there was a Holy Roman Emperor at the same time.
Right.
And that
We're
we
spanning
refer to
almost
as
like a
the Western
millennia of
Empire.
history here right now. But
Yeah, there's a Western Emperor and an Eastern Emperor until there's no Eastern Emperor anymore. Now, the claim of Moscow to be the Third Rome, which is taken seriously precisely because the Pope negotiated I think it was Sophia Paleologos, negotiated the marriage of Sophia Paleologos to Ivan III, Ivan the Great, the Grand Duke of Muscovy. And that's when they became czars and not grand dukes.
interesting. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the marriage was actually negotiated by the Pope as well.
Huh. Well, that's why
In an attempt to preserve, the Paleologian imperial line.
it's interesting. It's interesting that when you see that in kind of a connection with Fatima, that maybe we'll see sort of maybe we will eventually see a resurgence from the Third Realm.
Well, I mean, they shot the czar, so.
Well, sure, but I mean,
but they've like
Yeah,
no, but
it could
they undermine their credibility.
oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's
Like
going to have to be
Russia as it has stood since the Bolshevik Revolution and shooting the czar is not the Third Rome.
well, yeah. No, like they're spread it
They
throughout the world.
shot him. They shot him.
Yeah.
It's these regimes are about as legitimate as Napoleon declaring himself the Emperor of France.
Yeah.
Like taking the crown from the Pope and be like, "See, I'm in charge." No. Although an interesting and fun fact in history is that Napoleon refused to sit in the throne of Charlemagne. He was terrified by it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It does look kind of scary. I saw it in person actually.
He also knew deep within his heart that he was an imposter and a liar and a charlatan and a hack and an evil man, and not the father and protector of Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there is kind of some parallels between him and the Hohenstaufer. It's crowning himself in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But let's briefly outline kind of the history of the Great Schism, because I need a refresher.
Thank you. I did not prepare a history of the Great Schism. I was told we would be discussing the Council of Constance.
Well, yes.
And the Great Western Schism. And so I only prepared the Council of Constance, the Great Western Schism.
Okay, well, sure. But, if we're going to talk about the Western Schism, then I guess we do have to talk about sort of the importance. I guess we'll have to sort of talk about conciliarism, and we'll have to talk about the situation sort of the popes leading up to that council. So where should we start?
Okay, so which pope was it? I'm gonna have to. I also prepared the stuff 2 weeks ago, and then we just
No,
went
it's
on
all good.
hiatus from all the hubbub and stuff.
Oh, so were we? So it was it Philip the Fourth who deposed Boniface the Eighth?
That
Or
leads
not
up to
deposed,
the
captured him?
council. Now
Yeah.
the Babylonian captivity,
Mhm.
what we refer to as the Avignon
Papacy.
papacy, starts with Clement V,
Mhm.
and from that point onward, he doesn't go to Rome. In his defense, Rome was a dump, and there were gang fights between two of the Roman noble families, and a lot of blood in the streets. And so he decided he wasn't going to go to Rome.
Right.
And so he stayed in France, and he got crowned in France, and then the papal court just moved to France.
Right.
And it stayed there for the duration of the. It stayed there until I think it's Boniface. No, Gregory the 11th. Stayed there until Gregory the 11th. There were some issues. So there was a pope, and then there was an anti-pope. And obviously, like in Avignon, they wanted a pope, and then the Roman pope, and then the Avignon candidate. And all the French cardinals decided that they were in charge, and that. Clement the 7th is the Avignon candidate, followed by Benedict XIII, the legitimate candidate, Boniface the 9th, Innocent the 7th, and Gregory the 12th. And Gregory the 12th is the one who famously resigns at the Council of Constance. And the other two are forced to resign. I think, yeah, they're forced more or less. They're like, guys, you got to resign. And he resigned, and he was like, if I resign, you resign. We get one pope, knock it off. Because previously, there had been a council at Pisa who declared both popes were deposed. And then a third pope was made pope, Pope John the 23rd, who was anti-Pope John the 23rd, not
Right.
St. John the 23rd. And so now, instead of two popes, they had three popes. Do you know why? Because councils only made it worse, not better.
So conciliarism.
They're
isn't
like,
the answer.
we're totally going to fix the problem with the council. And then they just made it much worse.
Much worse.
What do you mean there's three now?
No. Now there are three of them.
We should have had that. We should have had that queued up.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
Oh, look, we've just in time for the council. We have our new guest. So we're just Jimmy Stash. Welcome to our enlivened discussion. So what's this shirt you have? Swift's Tree.
Swift's Tree. Yeah, it's an homage to a very memorable rector's conference of a venerable spiritual director at St. Mary's in Houston. He was the rector at HTS in Dallas, and he gave this great rector's conference in which he said, gave good counsel to the young men about how to fight off near occasion to sins of the flesh. He's like, go out for a walk in the back 40, appreciate God's creation. It really helps for me, looking at the trees and whatnot, and saying my rosary out there. It's really, really good spiritual exercise. Sometimes that's not the solution for every near occasion. Sometimes you'll be walking and you'll happen across a tree with a knot that just the right size. And at that moment you realize you can screw just about anything. It's like when that happens, Go straight to the chop. You know.
All right, we're hearing the inner workings of the seminary right now, which is
Yeah,
probably for about.
yeah. No,
How
he's
deeply edifying.
It's very edifying.
yeah, he's a very very smart man. He's actually
Oh no, that's great. Yeah.
he's this guy, man. He's been a liturgist, formator for like 40 years. He's been MC for. He's really good friends with Cardinal Burke, Cardinal,
Nice man.
a few top prelates, and MC to JP2 Mass. This guy's just he's awesome.
That's awesome, man. So we were actually just at the point of saying how, in the Western Schism, how the attempt to actually refer
Fix it with the council made it so much worse.
Yeah, with Pisa, because then now you have, and now there are 3 of them. There's a third pope that was introduced by that. So I don't know if you're ready for this, Jimmy, but Udis here Udis has got 6 pages of notes in Latin apparently prepped to demolish your Occidental errors.
Right.
Your Occidental occasionalism.
I did not brush up on my Western schism history.
It's okay. Just
But
well,
I was told this is what we were discussing, the Council of Constance.
I mentioned it to James
You
here.
mentioned it, and then you mentioned it to me, like it was the thing that we were going to do.
Oh no,
Oh,
that's
sure.
great. I have, yeah. I mean, I did my own fair share of research into this area. I mean, I have a 15-page research paper on it, but this was written a year and a half ago. I just kind of have to pull it up here.
Oh, sure.
See.
So what you can remember. So like, what is your kind of position about the place of ecumenical councils, I suppose, in their relation to the to magisterial authority? Like, if you're going to say it ad hoc here.
Well, what seems to be rooted in the tradition is the idea that, yes, while the Bishop of Rome, I mean, you can refer to the 3 main reasons that Ratzinger gives in Call to Communion for why the Bishop of Rome has primacy, not a supremacy, but a primacy, to justify his, prima inter pares status. He's an arbiter, he's a mediator, he's a brother, first amongst his brother bishops. And over in a conciliar setting, he is kind of like the default, he's the sort of last resort in the case of impasse, or where something can't go forward, something can't be agreed upon by all the bishops. But he doesn't certainly have primacy, absolute supremacy over a council. Councils have always had. That is the utmost authority, expression of the living, enduring magisterial authority of the church, because it's all the bishops speaking together, and you can't really beat that. It's all the apostles speaking in unison.
Now, when you did this, did you read anything besides Ratzinger? Did you get into the historical documents at all?
Which ones would you like to refer to?
So I'm referring to. So I've got a list here. I've got. Besides obviously the anathemas put out by the First Vatican Council, which we should always take into consideration.
That's
good.
Yeah.
This is kind of an anchor point, since that's an actual doctrinal statement of council. Something like so I've got lists here, Suarez, of epistles from the first 4 centuries of the church, of popes expressing papal primacy, how synods do not have powers over popes, how popes are the ones who are supposed to legitimately convoke synods, how they are the head of the church, how they are the last court of appeal.
Last court of appeal, again, first among equals.
Etc.
Not supreme.
Okay, but do you know the Vatican I anathema I'm referring to?
What's the formulation? How is it written?
If anyone says that the Roman pontiff has merely an office of supervision and guidance, and not the full and supreme power of jurisdiction over the whole church, And this not only in matters of faith and morals, but also in those which concern the discipline and government of the church dispersed throughout the whole world, or that he has only the principal part, but not the absolute fullness of this supreme power, or that this power is not ordinary and immediate both over all in each of the churches and over all in each of the pastors and the faithful, let him be anathema.
I mean, it's really rich, obviously. Coming in the council that it did, Vatican I, at the time that it did. Again, you refer to any ecumenical council like Vatican I after the Great Schism. So the East, they didn't even begin to have their own ecumenical councils and call them as such in the same way. They did have their councils or synods, but not like this. Vatican I. I mean, again, you have to see what it was a response to, the civil strife.
Yeah, but an anathema is a dogmatic statement that you have to work with. You can't.
It's just really convenient
say that it's
right? The timing and who it's coming from. Okay, it's very circular argumentation. After the Great Schism, neither side is accountable to each other. Bishop of Rome, it's like he can go in either direction. It doesn't affect the other patriarchates of the East whatsoever. So they don't care. They're not going to say anything to the contrary.
Yeah, they're in schism. They're in
we're
schism.
We're in schism with each other. It's a two-way street. It's not.
No, they're in schism. They started it.
No. When did they start it?
Yeah.
This is good. I love this.
How did they start it? And who started it in the East?
Who started it in the East?
Photius?
Well, Emperor Michael the Drunkard, Michael III.
When?
He's the one who got the Phocian schism going, which ultimately resulted in what was the 1054 schism.
Patriarch Cellularius? No, actually, the schism was well in effect, well before 1054. By the 9th century.
No, but Michael the Drunkard.
What was the inciting
His uncle Bardas, who was in an incestuous relationship with his niece, was refused communion at the Hagia Sophia, and so he had the patriarch deposed, and the Pope said no, and then he put this guy named Photius in charge, who wasn't even a cleric. He was just a lay courtier. And he was like, no, you are the one who is excommunicated.
Well, Photius actually, too, denied that the Holy Spirit, not just the filioque clause, he actually denied that the Holy Spirit proceeds. He actually said explicitly the Holy Spirit does not proceed from the Son, which is actually like explicitly heretical. I mean, most Orthodox don't believe that, but some Orthodox do believe that. Some of the Byzantines do believe that it's still, which is problematic. But I mean, it's obviously like a minor point. This isn't going to be the major point of division, just like the filioque clause isn't. But Photius is kind of the even though he was actually quite a good scholar in many regards and actually did a lot of service to the church in general, he was kind of like the antagonist in kind of one of the major antagonists in sort of stirring up this controversy.
Yeah. So what year was this exactly? That you want to cite this as kind of like the first active schism on the part of the East?
No. I mean, I wasn't prepared to talk about the Phocian schism, so.
But this was effectively in 1054, wasn't it? I think that
this is earlier.
Oh, is it earlier? Okay.
Yeah.
863 to 867 is the Phocian schism. That's the first schism.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have the letters that went between the emperor and the pope when the first crusade was called, and they were sort of like, "Are we in schism?" It's like, I don't know. Are we in schism? And then they went back.
Oh,
and forth
right,
a few
of
times,
course,
like,
yeah. It was the first.
Am I commemorated in the diptychs? And then the emperor's like, "Oh, let me go check. I don't think so. Does that mean we're in schism?" And the pope's like, "I don't know. Does that mean we're in schism? I don't know."
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a lot is lost to the annals of history, and yeah, and obviously the the Mohammedan problem, obviously incited, an already increasing problem, and so it was, with the fact that they can't just like be emailing each other.
But the schism that we're in now,
yeah.
was the unity was proclaimed before Constantinople fell. I mean, that's why he's Blessed Emperor Constantine the 11th. He's venerated in the Western tradition, and the city falls, and yet I still live. Tears off his imperial insignia and runs into the fray, and is never seen again. But the next patriarch, the next fellow who's made patriarch, had initially actually been very pro-union, and then gone very anti-union, and so he was deliberately picked by the Turks. And then the Turkish Sultan hands him his implements of office and his implements of episcopacy, which is I think a little bit absurd to be invested by the Sultan as the Patriarch of Constantinople, but
yeah, it is rather absurd.
But you still need to be the Patriarch of Constantinople. You still need the Turkish government still needs to give you approval.
Oh, really? Is that still
there's probably about a lapsing period of time where there won't be a Patriarch of Constantinople anymore, because they won't let anyone who isn't a native of Turkey be the Patriarch of Constantinople. So
okay,
they're running low on candidates.
Yeah, it'll be.
Well, where is Bartholomew from? I don't remember that.
I have no idea. But yeah, that's what I've heard, is that the current position of the Turkish government, which could change at any time. I mean, you get regime changes in Turkey all the time, but
he made it clear they'll never leave Constantinople, even if there were such conditions set. I don't know. Whatever it might be, that's their main C.
You made a good point to me, James, earlier, that that it was one of the popes.
No, he's a Turkish. He's native to Turkey.
Okay.
One of the popes actually who convoked the Council of Constance actually sort of set the precedence for popes be necessary for convoking councils.
Well, that's not true, because the guy who convoked the Council of Constance was Anti-Pope John the 23rd.
Not Constance. Yeah, not Constance. It would have been Florence, and it was Gregory the 11th, Gregory the 13th. You're a little rusty. I don't have any notes.
13th.
Gregory
the 11th was the Pope who returned from Avignon.
Right. But yeah, this was against, obviously, Benedict XII of Avignon, and, well, it would have been Anti-Pope John the 23rd of the Pisa line at the time. And Gregory XII, he was also kind of forced into abdication as well by his curia, which is fixed against the Italians, the Romanists. So his last sort of proviso, his conditions for abdicating were basically that he would retroactively be acknowledged as the rightful principle of authority for the council that convoked the council, ratifying the council in the first place. And so he's like, yeah, I'll abdicate as long as
he ratified it. Well, he ratifies it before the abdication. So in the way in which the proceedings happen, he ratifies the council first and then abdicates.
But it was that was his condition, though.
There are certain sessions of the council that are not ratified.
Right. There, yeah, exactly. There are certain canons. Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't matter. It's what is the only thing of import here is that he, as a condition for his abdication, would be rightfully acknowledged, and his line, his successors within the Roman line, would be acknowledged as the rightful claimants to the papacy over, those of Benedict XII, which is actually Benedict XII had the curia in his favor for the vast majority of that 75-year period of schism. Many saints were on his side. It was very unclear who the real pope was. We stand up. And it was very clear John the 23rd was a fraud. So he was the first, right, to be kind of forced into abdication. But
Well, because he was the third one. It wasn't didn't have didn't the Leaning Tower of Pisa actually have something to do with the Council of Pisa?
No, but he was the fraud, but he actually had the most followers at the time, and that's why Emperor Sigismund had him call the council.
that's true. He did, yeah. He had a lot of popular kind of backing.
Imagine calling a council and then just everyone's just like, yeah, so you're not like, we're going in a different direction here.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd like to present you with this gold watch.
that's basically what happened there. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah.
But anyway, it's a pro move. The point is, it's a pro move on Gregory XIII's part, because it's like, well, if you're on your way out, if you want to just kind of justify your status and legacy in the long run and that of all your successors,
but it wasn't. My point though is it wasn't made ahistorically. It's not a position that's made ahistorically, because
I'd like to hear your argument for that.
Well, if we go back to 310, where Saint Marcellus the First dies, we have one of the things he says in one of his epistles, "Nolum synodum legitime fieri posse sine Romane sedi sectoritate," that no synod is able to be legitimate without the authority of the Roman seat.
Okay, that's great.
And
But
we can-
again, the lineage here is unclear as well. You know, the Roman line was rather hazy, because you have, again, because we have to track back to before Avignon, right? Because it was Rome that moved.
Yeah,
to
I'm
Avignon.
talking about 310 AD. I'm talking about the Bishop of Rome.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a great principle. That's good. But I'm saying tracing the real lineage of the Roman line here becomes very hazy after, well, even before the Avignon exile. But especially after, it became very unclear, and such that, I mean, that scholars aren't of one mind on that, you know, exactly. And it's really of no matter at this point, because it's not as if there's like some super added, you know, quasi divine metaphysical authority added to the papal office just because he, you know, has authority. He has the power over conciliarism, and the Roman line was given the nod in the end through Gregory XIII and all his successors. It's like, what are we bitching about? They're all bishops, you know. Again, there's nothing higher in the church than the episcopal office. Right? I mean, the problem with all ultramontanist errors as they began to crop up in the Middle Ages, with Gregory Gregory VII, Vicarius Papae, Boniface VIII, Ecclesiam Sanctam. They're trying to ascribe to the Pope like this, this like. Again, it's like.
Are you suggesting we just jettison our entire tradition after like the Great Western Schism? We just like, we'll just pretend that the Council of Trent never happened, and that can all go down too. And we had the Vatican I, that didn't happen because I don't like the current Pope or whatever. We can just dispense with all the tradition and found the society of Pope Pius 2.5.
No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm one of the biggest critics of SSPX, any set of a conscious organization, because they're self-defeating. They go against their own first principles as ultramontanists. Really, they do. They have no ground to stand on. No, jettison our tradition? Are you kidding me? No, we're in one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. If our view of the papacy doesn't align with the early church's view, we have a problem here. And if it's going to be a source of great tension and schism between us and the other 9 patriarchates, that's an even bigger problem.
Where do they keep coming from?
Do
they just make them? Is there a little patriarch factory where they just pop one out every couple of years? They're like, aha!
No, that's the thing. We're looking at the patriarchs analogously. Like people like to say to Bartholomew, "Oh, you're like the Pope of Constant." No, he's like, I'm not in the Western sense of the word. No, he's like, we don't have that. You know, no bishop is subservient to the Pope as if like he's their daddy. You know, as if he's like subordinate to him. Canonically, yes, that's how that works in the West. I'm quite aware of how you know. Canon law is very circular, because you can look at provisos like Canon 87, which gives bishops the right to dispense from ordinary, legislation from the Pope, you know, in extraordinary circumstances. This was something that was violated, right? You know, that a lot of people claim was, you know, at play during COVID, and that Pope Francis kind of overstepped this canon, kind of violated his principles when he went ahead with TC. Anyway, I digress. The point being that bishops have always been seen as the highest authority, and they have their own jurisdiction within their own see that is rightful to them. You don't get any higher than a bishop. You can talk about sort of within the hierarchy, a visible principle of unity, which has always been the Pope, prime amongst bishops, being a mediator, an arbiter, for the sake of unity. That's the Petrine office. It's not to lord authority.
So for the sake of the argument, we're just pretending Vatican I didn't happen, though, because that is an anathema from the First Vatican Council. We're like, oh well, that's not a real council. Is that what we're saying?
It's not an ecumenical.
What do we do with the text?
In the fullest sense of the term, it's not an ecumenical council. In my opinion, in no council after the Great Schism is a true ecumenical council.
What about Florence?
That is a patently absurd position that no council after Vatican, but no council after the Great Schism is an ecumenical council. Like, that's a patently absurd
it is
position.
So far as we call it ecumenical in the West, and I'm not saying anything that's contrary to doctrine.
No, it's not necessary for all the bishops in the world to be there. What's necessary is that there be a large amount of bishops from the world and that it's given papal approval. That's what's necessary for an ecumenical council.
Yeah, so long as one bishop signs off.
There were no ecumenical councils in history that weren't given papal approval that just somehow went through because a bunch of bishops showed up.
Yeah, but their authority wasn't contingent upon the Pope only just giving his stamp of approval, as if that's all that mattered.
If he didn't give the stamp of approval, it wasn't a council, man. That's the way it works.
No, but he wouldn't do anything against his brother bishops. They were all on the same page. That's how papal infallibility from Vatican I and ineffabilis Deus, right? That's how it's massaged, and Easterners can kind of, those who are sort of Eastern adjacent, who want to be friendly to the East, they explain it. It's like, well, it's not so much about the Pope. It's just more about, it's called papal infallibility because Peter speaks for the rest of the apostles, right? So he's the spokesperson. So he was not going to say anything that's, of course, contrary to the deposit of the faith as carried down throughout the centuries and through the bishops and everything that they signed off on. So it's really just stating the obvious, what's already infallible by virtue of extraordinary universal magisterium with all the bishops. It's like, okay, cheers. But then it's just a misnomer.
I'm sorry, I don't get that read on it. Vatican I doesn't read like Vatican II, man. It reads pretty like.
Well, I know, but I'm saying
it's not a massage text.
I know it's not. I know it's not. The language is strong, but I'm saying that's
they don't write in that stupid way that possessed people in the 20th century and the 21st century, that we have to talk at both sides of our mouth and say absolutely nothing.
No, I'm saying though is that it's a perfectly legitimate way of interpreting papal infallibility now, so it's not just about the Pope, because otherwise, but that's the thing. If you explain papal infallibility like that, if it's just about the authority that all of them, as universal extraordinary magisterium, they exercise together, then it's a misnomer. I don't know why we're calling it papal infallibility. Again, and also it's very circular. This is not really. It doesn't hold a lot of water, to be honest. Vatican I, really, this council, because it was convoked in a time of great unrest, and at a time when the papal office was...
Most councils were convoked in a time of great unrest.
No.
Council of Constance was convoked in a time of great unrest. Most of the ecumenical councils were convoked in a time of great unrest.
I know. I'm talking about with respect
that doesn't count at all. There was an Arian heresy, man.
No. It's not. No. Of course, Arian heresy. We all know that. Yes, of course. Yeah, Nicaea in response to that, Chalcedon in response to Nestorianism, and then Ephesus in response to all these issues. Right. I know that. Gnosticism, all these issues. But I'm talking about with respect to the papal office. It had been so greatly impugned at that time by the Republicans in the northern states of Italy. In Florence to Naples, there were a lot of dissidents who wanted to take back papal states, who were threatening the Bishop of Rome's position. And Pius IX, what does he want to do? Well, he wants to secure his authority on a moral level. He's like, well, if civilly I'm going to be kind of taken to task here, well, then I'm going to actually stand my ground and secure what I know I already have.
No, that's not the reason. That's
not. Absolutely is.
No, Pius IX started out as very liberal, politically speaking. He was securing moral authority because he saw the moral corruption that was coming.
He believed he was a big proponent of the Italian national movement.
But then he saw that it was taken over by communists.
Yeah. And
Freemasons, and he thought, well, this is not good. when Napoleon III is like the so-called conservative who's defending you, like that is there's a bad, Europe's not going well.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
I'll
He was
concede
doing
that.
it on a moral level. It was not for political reasons.
No, I'll concede the point. But no, it's a pretext. It's a pretext because yes, these are issues that needed to be condemned. Sure, in a syllabus
The
of errors,
Arians
such
said
as
it
we
was a
ended up-
pretext for
probably.
for this council to be called. What is this? You can't make up a new word that's not in the Bible. We have tradition, damn it. That's what they'd say.
No, the point is what's in papal infallibility. It's how needful is that? Why did that need to be pronounced? And in the way that it was, it's just gonna be a further source of tension. Like there's literally no mind for fostering church unity here.
This is the argument. This was the argument. Argument that you're making, you're bringing in too much tension, was the argument against the Council of Trent by the Protestants. This was the argument against the Council of Nicaea by the Arians. This was the argument against the Council of Ephesus by the Nestorians. Every single council that's been opposed in the history of the Catholic Church has been opposed by someone saying, why are you bringing in these unneedful distinctions? You're ruining the unity that we would have naturally if we all just hit ourselves in the head with a sledgehammer and then just held hands in a circle and sang songs about fairies and donuts and magical unicorns.
I'm not
Everything would be so great if we just pretended nothing was happening.
Well, I mean, but it is an argument from authority, though, James.
It is.
But I guess that is sort of, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's begging the question. It's circular, and it's not. It doesn't hold any water for me. It really doesn't. No, seriously. I mean, papal infallibility, and look in the way in which it was exercised first, with respect to the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. Again, an item of theological speculation that had been hotly debated for the Church's entire history. Our chief theologian in the West, Thomas Aquinas, didn't even hold that dogma. It was actually proposed first by an Eastern Father in the 3rd century. This was less about proclaiming his dogma something that actually needed to be proclaimed dogma, and more about the Pope and solidifying his authority, his absolute.
No, that's not why it was proclaimed. That's not why it was proclaimed at all.
Oh, but no, it was
again going back to the it was going back to the undermining. It was going back to the undermining in the modern world of morality and historical truth of the faith. The First Vatican Council was the council against modernism.
No, I understand that. No, I'm talking about the first exercise of the papal infallibility, ex cathedra, proclaiming dogma of the Immaculate Conception.
An attack on modernism.
What does this have to do with modernism? What is making that dogma, Immaculate Conception, which Our Lady introduced herself as in Lourdes? That was 1854. That was before the council, correct? Yeah, that was 1854. Yeah. Council was 1869. Yeah. Okay. So that's really convenient. So this is anyway an instance of private revelation in the West, which is not binding, but now it's made dogma. And why is this necessary? Again, it's superfluous. It's superfluous dogma. But Vladimir Lossky, a prominent Russian theologian, he makes that clear. The principal and only really important dogma, Marian dogma, is that of the Holy Theotokos of Ephesus, Mary, Mother of God.
Yeah, I don't agree. And Lossky is part of that just obscurantist. I'm so mystical. It's the East. I hate the West. He's part of that entire movement that rejects.
Well, it's true.
Rejects reason.
No, but it's true. No, seriously.
No, they just run around in circles going, it's mysterious. Anything I don't want and I disagree with is mysterious, you guys. It's like their own version of Vatican II, post-Vatican II. Anything I disagree with is a mystery. We can do whatever we want over here in Russia because we're having so much fun here.
That's not how that works. But JP2, nobody was more obsessed with the term mystery than JP2. That guy threw it around like a freaking pennies in a well, dude. Again, all her dignity stems from being the God bearer. Seriously, nothing else. And so it follows from that. It's fitting. Most of theology, speculative theology, is from the argument of fittingness, right? It's only fitting that she should be preserved from actual sin, any sin during her life. She's sinless already by virtue of being Mother of God. And then it follows from that second most important Marian dogma that she should be perpetual virgin throughout her life. She's being the pure on.
But I guess that does sort of like bear back on the question of the nature of authority itself, really, of the Patron office, which brings up the point that
RESPECT, respect authority, OBEY, obey authority.
What the fuck?
Come on, respect authority, come on, obey authority, come on.
Jeez, man, that's rough. That's rough. That should
It's
be
good,
the that's the Pius Pio Nono anthem there, right there, man.
Wow.
No, but
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
guy-
I don't understand though, because you're a Catholic and you hold to you obviously hold to the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception, since you're bound to. But
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't deny it, and come oath of fidelity in a year and a half before ordination, I have to, in good conscience, say, in no uncertain terms, that I subscribe and I uphold everything, that constitutes the deposit of faith, everything that we believe in as Catholics, and that's saying the West, but more than that, broader than that. But so in good conscience, I can't, right, say I do believe, I do uphold if I don't. But this is the thing, is I don't deny it. I don't. Nothing that the West teaches, I can't. There's nothing the West that we teach in the West and understand in the West that I either don't believe or can't come to understand or explain in terms and words that are actually rooted in the tradition, that are apostolic.
So you've got this like two instead of one church and another church that still has apostolic tradition but isn't schism. You have this this is sort of like the Jewish tradition of here we've got the Noetic covenant, here we've got the Israel covenant, and the Gentiles are fine. They're good and they follow everything in the Noetic covenant. They're going to go to heaven too. So everyone's good. We don't need to preach anything to anyone. We're just going to go. We're going to hang out. We're not going to eat pork. We're going to wear our prayer shawls, and they can go over there and they can have bacon double cheeseburgers. As long as they go to church on Sunday, they're good to go. You've got two churches.
No, we don't. See,
you have two legitimate traditions. You've got more than that, because there's other schisms within the schism, because schism breeds schism breeds schism breeds schism. So you've got all these apostolic churches just kind of like that have branched off, and they're like, well, they're okay too, and they never need to accept anything we have in the West because they're special the way they are.
Oh, and we don't need to accept anything that they have that we've lost, right? Because we have it all, right?
We haven't lost anything that they have. We've lost nothing that they have.
Oh, really? Oh, nothing that really.
Name a thing.
Okay.
Name a dogmatic belief that they have that we've lost.
No, it's not about
name a liturgy that they have that we've lost.
It's not about a subset of doctrines or dogmas that they have that we don't have, that we're just so lost in the woods because we don't have. No, it's the fullness of tradition. They're ancient venerable liturgies. They're rites. The iconography. The arts.
We have that stuff.
No, it's not the same. We have a rite. We are the biggest sui juris rite.
We have more than a rite. The Pope is the head of all of the rites in the Catholic Church.
Okay, in the West,
he can say if he goes to other churches that are in communion or that come into communion, they say their rites. Why do you think that their Eastern rites said in Western churches in Rome, in the city of Rome? Why do you think of biritual priests in Rome and all throughout the Catholic Church? We have we have more than them too. We have the Maronites. They don't have the Maronites.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I know. Well, we have as well the Melkites, which is just basically the Antiochian church for them. But anyway, there are a lot of serious rites churches that were established. It's curious though that a lot of the sticking points of the Great Schism, these pretexts, what I would say were pretexts for the schism, on both sides for that matter, because no side is guilt free. And again, there's a lot of history there. You need to go back quite a ways. We can go begin with the Phocian schism for sure. But the point being, like the Filioque clause, all these offshoots of Orthodox churches that came back into full communion with Rome canonically, they didn't have to stop. They didn't have to include the Filioque in their creeds. It's not important enough. It's not
because they have different liturgical tradition. We said that's fine. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, but it's cited. Why is
As
it
long
so
as on
consistently
principle
cited as
you
one of the
don't
main
reject
damn
this
things?
dogmatically speaking, your liturgical tradition stands. That's fine.
It's not, but that's the thing. It's not just a matter of liturgy here. It's the theology. It's a greater understanding of God, of the Godhead, of procession within not only.
Yeah, we have all of that within our own tradition. All of that is compassed in our own tradition.
Yeah, that's
you can
wonderful.
go and find it if you go look for it, because all these different rites and their traditions of learning have colleges at Rome that for hundreds of years. And like our good friend Pius IX, who you seem to be really down on, founding the Ethiopian College at Rome to make sure there was more reading and understanding of the Ethiopian tradition in Rome.
Well, and actually, they have their own Ecclesia Juris now, actually under Pope Francis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And so do the Eritreans. I think that's actually the most recent Ecclesia Juris is the Eritrean Ecclesia.
because I mean, when the Jesuit missionaries went to Ethiopia, they weren't like, oh, we're going to just teach them how to be Western. They were like, oh, look at all this. They were like, we got to learn their liturgy. We got to because they were out of communion because they were attached to the patriarch, the Coptic patriarch, the patriarch of Alexandria. There was a chunk that came back into communion. They're like, we got to learn their liturgy. We got to learn their language. All of this stuff really belongs to us because they became Christian before the schism. So this is really all ours, and so we didn't know this was here. We really have to incorporate it. And they grabbed everything that they could.
That's our patrimony. We have a monopoly on all of that. That's from Rome, right? No, it's not. Bullshit. We're one damn patriarchate. One patriarchate. And it wasn't even the principal one after Rome fell. It became Constantinople. And Constantinople was very Romanized. And we had the Visigoth tradition, and a lot of things were merging, and there's kind of an amorphous kind of limbo state in liturgy.
No, it's very clear. No, it's very clear from reading all the documents by popes in the first 4 centuries of the church, before any of this comes up, before there's even a council. It's very clear that they think of the whole church, that they are the caput ecclesiae, and that everything in the tradition of the whole church as the caput ecclesiae belongs to them. It's not like it's separate. And if they don't happen to know about it, they ought to, because it is part of their tradition.
The only reason the Bishop of Rome...
It's very clear in the tradition that's the way the Roman pontiffs think about their office.
Okay. There's you need to go back to the beginning, really, to understand what the hell the Petrine office is and what it is relative to the Bishop of Rome's office, his seat. What makes him more than just one amongst many other bishops, brother apostles?
I suggest you read Suarez's response to the Anglican Schism.
No, I'm talking about since the beginning. How do you understand?
Yeah, he starts at the beginning. He starts with Pope Anacletus the First.
He references Anacletus here. He's the 4th Pope, I think. He's the Pope after Clement.
Yeah, he starts with Anacletus, and he says primo ergo, and then he just goes through all the way until Nicaea, basically, of different documents from different popes and the way that they think about the Petrine See.
No, that's wonderful. I'm saying, does this authority? Where does it come from? We can't just say, "Oh, the Bishop of Rome has it," just because. Okay, well, again,
it goes to Peter and his successors, and the early church always understood that the same office devolved to the successors of Peter as from Peter, and it devolved to the successors of Peter at Rome, not just whoever he randomly happened to consecrate as a bishop.
Is why Rome, and I'm willing to get into that discussion. I know, so Ratzinger gives his 3 main reasons.
Well, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be Rome, because there were ones who weren't in Rome in the Avignon papacy who were still popes.
For the apostolic succession. Well, I mean, the apostolic succession is. I mean, it was it's first referred to and most prominently in Adversus Heresies, but actually, it's interesting because Irenaeus actually establishes that episcopacy to be of that of Peter and Paul.
Right.
So, that's often the argument is often made that Paul is it's Peter and Paul. That's why you have the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul and stuff like that in the that Paul adds the weight of authority to the Petrine statements in the gospel.
Right. He's that other bishop. He's that, again, the other main pillar of the church. It's as if,
and that's why that's part of the reason why the Petrine office is considered see Peter and Paul, but Peter is the first name in the list for obvious reasons.
Right. Okay, I know because of his special commissioning. I know Matthew 18, but again, it gets about this authority. Why is it seated in Rome and seated as it is with the supremacy and the ultramontane character that you want to give it?
I'm not giving it an
Why is it
ultramontane
stuck?
character. I didn't say he has any authority over tradition. I'm saying that, as a matter of fact, the thing that stops the Pope
Is ineffective.
from the thing that stops the Pope from promulgating heresy, well, because the Holy Spirit, is that he can't conflict with the tradition of the Church. This is why Pope Francis talks out both sides of his mouth over the course of 48 pages of gibberish. Him and his cronies do that, and then all of a sudden, divorced and remarried Catholics are getting communion, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's not because they said anything that flatly contradicted the teaching of the Catholic Church. It's because they said nothing in 40 pages, and then went ahead and did whatever they wanted to do in practice. That has nothing to do with infallibility. That has that it is.
Okay, that's not what I'm saying in such. No, I'm talking about the specific character of Petrine authority seated in the Bishop of Rome. Why again was it in Rome? We get into the main reasons for that. There are several. Okay, and I'm willing to concede. Of course, I can't but concede them. That's apostolic. We see it again. All the fathers talk about it. Okay, from Cyprian to Irenaeus to Chrysostom, Ignatius, they all speak of this again. This primacy in the Bishop of Rome's office. Absolutely, he's first among equals. He's a mediator. He's an arbiter. Where did this authority get blown sky high? Like again, we know when it started happening. When neither side was accountable to each other, and the West could just do whatever the hell it wanted. Okay, and the inciting incident. This is really it about the filioque. Again, the pretexts that are often cited for the reason for schism, they don't matter now. So how Eastern Catholics understand the papal office is really of no matter, no concern. They're not they're not like questioned. Like that's not like condition for being Catholic. Oh, do you understand just exactly how much authority the Bishop of Rome has canonically over all the other bishops? No, it doesn't matter. They still have their orthodox understanding of the Bishop of Rome for all we know. They just have to insert them in their anaphora, Chrysostom and Basil, and just to pray for the Pope. But they still, it's like they still have their own metropolitans and patriarchs that they respond to. They see that's all that matters to them. Filioque, they can omit. That's fine. Again, the reason why the filioque is so as controversial as it is because of the fault of the West, the sin of the Pope that inserted it outside of an ecumenical council. That is unheard of. There was no precedent for that. Changing the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed without consulting any of the bishops of the world. And remember, this is before the Great Schism. So we didn't have the same understanding of the papal office that we did in the Middle Ages onwards, which was just aggrandized beyond belief, just to convenience certain popes and their lust for power. No, this is what this is. Okay, like you can't expect that not to be sowing seeds of division. Like he was just asking for, who was it, Urban IV, who inserted that outside? I can't remember now.
So first of all, the first time in history where we see what we think of as like, whoa, the Pope is really lauding his authority, actually occurs before the life of Constantine. What's the emperor's name now? It was the schism of Paul of Samosata and his heresy, and he's getting away with it. Mostly because the Queen of Arabia quite likes him. I guess he was great at parties or something. And when the Roman Empire regains control over the territory, the Christians come to him. They're like, listen, there's this guy and he's wrong. And you're the emperor, so you should do something about this because it's causing problems. And the emperor's like, you guys realize I worship Jupiter, right? And they're like, yeah, we don't really care you're the emperor. We just want you to fix the problem. He's like, okay, who's in charge? They're like, him. He's the Bishop of Rome. And he's like, okay. And then he's like, what's your decision on this guy in Arabia?
It's curious though, as a Holy Roman Emperor, for a long time, as for formality's sake, just had to approve the Bishop of Rome's election. Out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, the way in which an emperor is the last veto used was for the election of Pius X. Otherwise, it would have been Rampolla, which would have been a bit of a disaster diplomatically, and possibly, morally for Europe, given the fact that he was so loosey-goosey liberal.
Now we're tapping into Udis's actual Gallican sentiments.
No, the three there were three kings, and they killed the king of France, and I think was it the king of England had a veto, and then they lost that because they went into schism over I want to get married 8 times and not have to deal with that, and
Well, who's that?
and so the emperors, even with the dissolution of the HRE, the power of veto was kept by the Austro-Hungarian emperor. And the last time it was used was at the election of Pope Pius X, because he was not the first candidate to get the majority of votes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My point is, this is rather absurd. What is the papal? Again, it comes back to the question. Fundamental question is, what is the papal office, Petrine office, relative to the bishop, specifically the seat of the Bishop of Rome, and what is the extent of this authority? What the hell is it? If the bishop, Holy Roman Emperor, for centuries had to give his seal of approval for the Bishop of, again, pastor of souls, he's a
That
patriarch.
has to go with how that has to go with how you pick it. The emperor couldn't the emperor couldn't legitimately depose him. Trust me, the Hohenstaufen emperors would have loved to have deposed Gregory the Seventh, but they could not.
I know it's a formality,
when he
though,
was
but it's still
elected,
problematic.
they had a chance to veto the election.
Right. Well, it could have been vetoed, but that's not. It wasn't.
But once
very
he's the Pope,
prudent move.
you can't veto him. You can't just be like, well, I don't want him anymore. Get him out of here.
Right. Well, yeah, no, that's true. Like, you can do that.
Well, I mean, but
then this shifts to a question of how we pick a pope, not a question of what exactly when he's the Pope. When he's the Pope, he's the Pope.
But it seems like it doesn't. It seems like historically the role wasn't only of the Bishop of Rome, but of the authority of Rome, like sort of in general, which is why the Eastern emperors, were so adamant claiming the title of being Roman themselves. I think that seems to be part of the historical precedence, right?
Yeah, but that's certainly part of the tradition. Yeah, I mean, just the privacy.
Well,
because it's not just an ecclesial
their
reality.
imperial office was never denied, except very rarely in the West.
Well, again, this is part of the bigger issue at play here: is the expanding of the Petrine office to take on a civil, secular dimension that it was never really meant to have. With Stephen the First, right in the 8th century. When he was granted gift by Pepin the Short, the Pentapolis, the Byzantine Exarchate, these the first papal states, right? And then began the
first official papal states. But this office was fulfilled by Pope Leo the Great when he negotiated for Attila the Hun to leave. He was administering the city of Rome at the time. Gregory the Great was the one who resolved the starvation of the city.
Yeah, but until 755...
For centuries, the civil authority had abandoned Rome.
Had abandoned Rome?
Had abandoned Rome. They had abandoned helping Rome. Why do you think the Huns were coming to sack Rome? Because the Byzantines weren't interested in helping.
Right. No, in that sense, I thought you meant the civil character. Sorry, of the papacy.
No.
I didn't. Okay.
No, the papacy rather reluctantly took it on. And now the reason that civil authority was granted by Pepin the Short was because there were these guys named the Lombards in the north of Italy who kept thinking that they had the same power of the Pope that the emperor thought he had over the power. The emperor thought and in practice exercised over the Patriarch of Constantinople, that he could depose him at will, that he could make him say whatever he wanted. That he could do whatever he wanted. If that Pope gets out of line, he's gone. Like Michael III, right? If my sick, twisted uncle wants to be in an incestuous relationship with his niece, then who is the Patriarch of Constantinople to stop him? Bring me another bottle of wine.
Yeah, no, it's very, again, it's from tactical, rationale that this half time, the sort of the foresight and the preemptive sort of character of these concessions, again, in light of the Lombards to the north. Yeah, I know this is seen as need still a mistake. And that, of course, was actually when tensions exponentially between East and West after the Bishop of Rome's authority, again, just got out of hand in terms of its civil secular scope. It's like, what is the priority now? What is the Bishop of Rome is not meant to be some quasi divine monarch whose rule. Have you ever, by the way, it's side note. Have you ever, again, just to give us a sense of just how out of control our notions of the Pope, of the papacy and papal authority have become in the West? Have you ever read like somebody perused these ultramontane hymns from the 19th century? The language is just absurd. It's insane. It's ascribing to the Pope things that you could only rightly say of God, of the Logos, Christ himself. His rule is over space and time.
I mean,
He holds in his hand.
So
all power. It's insane. Where does this come from? This is not from thin air. This is
this comes from a very specific heresy that was actually condemned by the popes. It's called traditionalism. Cue the meme.
Which meme?
You know which meme. Cue the meme.
All of Christendom was in moral outrage.
Anyway.
That's one of our memes.
Memes here. We're off the beaten path. There's a heresy called traditionalism. It's not De Maistre. He wasn't even. I don't think he was practicing Catholic. I can't remember that. I usually can remember the names of the ringleaders now. The priest who thought it up ended up getting excommunicated and just being like, "Nah, I'm leaving. I'm founding my own ultramontane church over here, away from you." And
oh, the red hot gates of hell are creeping open. Satan is hating his pokers for you, you blasphemous heathens.
And I think it's Delamine. I think it's Delamine was the ringleader, and there were a couple others involved, and they held the position. And this is before the life of Pius IX. They held the position that the Pope was infallible, not just in matters of like ex cathedra pronouncements or moral teaching, but everything, science, you name it. Which brand of Wheaties is the best? If he says it, and he was like, yes, this
hilarious.
Is the way to defeat Kantian epistemology. We're just going to make the Pope the arbiter of all knowledge. And he had all these people who were like, yes. So this is where those hymns I would willing to bet you were coming from, because he was big in the 19th century. And he went to Rome, and I think it was Gregory the 15th. And because it was Gregory the 15th, it was before Pius IX, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah. He went to Rome, and he was like, look, he was summoned, and he was like, look, I'm going to get a gold star. I made the Pope so great. And Gregory the 15th is like, what is wrong with you? This is the stupidest thing. This is a heresy. Get this. I am condemning this. This is a heresy. And it was like, you can't condemn it. You're the Pope.
You're the Pope.
But my condemnations mean that it's heresy. You know, it's just like Exsurge Domine, except instead of Luther, this is you, and you came up with a bad idea, and you need to stop. And he's like, no, this is and he got really upset. And then I think he got in trouble, and then I think he ultimately left, and he was like, I'm going to do my own thing over here.
Oh, that's really dumb.
The heresy was referred to as traditionalism, and it was associated with a
Which is
philosophical movement called traditionalism as well. And that's where De Maistre comes in, and some of the other sort of like late 19th, early 20th century anti-modern writers. I think that there's some internet grifter Catholics who are getting a little into that. I think they should be really careful with these writings because they're not philosophically sound. Interesting criticisms of modernity, but then also solutions not so good.
That's interesting. No, yeah, I didn't know about the source of that heresy known as tradition. Yeah,
well, maybe we should wrap it up, guys. I think we're definitely kind of running a little bit over time. It's worthwhile to have this discussion, but maybe we can live a proviso and finish this up later, and then actually have a more fleshed out discussion of
Sorry, there's so many
of the
directions. There's
great.
so much left unsaid.
Well, I
too.
think I think we should actually I think we should talk more about maybe the Phocian schism, since we wanted to talk about the root of it, or maybe we could talk about the early definitions of the papacy, like maybe talk about Pope Gelasius, depending on which way would be the most constructive. We can reconvene though, maybe either next week or the week following, depending on what works for you, Jimmy.
Well, I love it, man. Yeah, whenever this is fun stuff, man, and it's all in good, spirit of goodwill. And
Yeah.
I hope you know that I get excited and I like.
Oh,
to
does,
yell.
dude, it's good, man.
As always,
Well, look at us, Jim. We're a festival of conviviality.
That's exactly what this is. That's what this is. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a festival of conviviality.
If I could only make that face.
the Tim Curry face is just brilliant. But yeah, so anyways, everyone, thank you for joining us, all our 0 viewers, and remember.
Oh, I have one closing remark, and I don't mean to be reductionistic.
Closing remark. Yeah.
I don't mean to be reductionistic about this, but it's just food for thought. Every week when we say the creed together, we say, profess at the end, I believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. The question comes down to, what is the relation of our separated brothers, whether we believe they're in schism or we're in schism or both? What is the relation to us? What are they? Are they apostolic churches? Our answer has to be yes. Where there's succession and sacramentality, there is apostolism. They are apostolic churches. If we believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, that must include them. Either they're not apostolic or we're lying every time we say the creed. And we have a most narrow view of apostolicism. It's I mean, again, without being reductionistic about it, because I know there's so much, there's so much politics and canonicity here that can obscure our view of, again, what they actually are. And it's not to say they don't have to change anything, cede any ground, or for our part too. The same goes for that. But repairing such a schism, again, within the Apostolic Church itself, Protestants have no sharing. There's nothing there. It's void. Between East and West, the two lungs, it should be one of our top priorities, and they're one of their top priorities. And in fact, that's where I give us, the West, an edge, is because our recent pontiffs have done much more for fostering ecumenism, true ecumenism, than a lot of Eastern patriarchs have. So
I would like to say, but as well, historically has been the case as well. So before you came on, we were talking about how why Russia is called the Third Rome in the first place, and it's because the Pope arranged for the wedding of Sophia Paleologos, the daughter of Blessed Constantine XI, to be married to the Grand Duke of Moscow, Ivan the Great, Tsar Ivan the Great. Right, so. They're called Tsar because they are successors to the imperial office. And so the emperor, the Eastern emperor, existed in Russia until they shot him during the First World War.
Yeah, and Russia's era is
so this is and I will. And one of the reasons that he was very unpopular was because he was very interested in the West. He was interested in Fatima. And they thought he was going to. He was going to go in for a reunion with the Western Church.
Yeah. Nicholas. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. This is a good point. But it's interesting. Russia has always been kind of an amalgam of the two. There's Gallicanism too, the conciliarism that kind of course, permeated and inspires their ecclesiology, but. And now they have their own internal schisms that we don't have, which is courtesy of Philotism and all the nonsense there. But so they have that neo-Roman dimension in terms of being really the Third Roman Empire, the continuation. But then, I mean, fundamentally, religiously, they're very much Greek, very much Hellenic, and that's deeply rooted in their spirituality and in the Slavic spirituality.
But it was just to say this is to say that, like, this is the Pope arranging a marriage. The Western Church never stopped trying to get them back into communion. That's the first crusade was preached by Urban because he thought they were going to, so he thought that the Crusaders were going to give the land to the Eastern Roman Emperor and go home. And that's 3 out of 4 of them swore that they would do that. They swore fealty to the emperor. Okay. And then they got it. And the one guy who didn't swear it was like, 1, I'm going home. And 2, we should give this to the emperor. And the 3 who had sworn fealty were like, I don't feel like it. Now we're here and Europe's over there. It was expensive. And even the most infamous crusade, the Fourth Crusade, started trying to reconcile the churches because a dethroned Byzantine emperor came and say, hey, if you put me back, I will give you so much money, you will be riding into Jerusalem in no time. And they believed him because they were suckers. And the Venetians were like, meanwhile, the Venetians were like, oh, we could do something with this, get a little money, get a little revenge. Sneaky Venetian traitors. The Middle Ages, you got to watch those guys.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, they did rescue many of the riches of Constantinople for us to enjoy now.
After they raped the
Well,
women.
good can come of evil. It doesn't excuse them.
Doesn't excuse them.
But we have nice stuff now.
There's so much reparation that needs to be done for Fourth Crusade. So,
Yeah, I would say you shouldn't give it back while the Turks are running the country.
That's probably not a good idea.
Yeah. Jeez.
I think I concur with that.
They're not gonna anyway.
Yeah.
Be good. But anyways, thanks for joining us, everyone, and remember,
you will receive your reward in purgatory.
Cheers.